Since the first episode of Empowered Athlete Podcast launched on October 14th, 2018, you two have hosted 39 one-to-one deep, thoughtful interviews with athletes, coaches, and experts. You've also guided listeners through more than 60 additional mindset and real-life honest and raw conversations, all to create 100 valuable episodes that listeners can hear over and over again. Yeah, friends, I'm telling you to go check out the archives. I have personally had the pleasure to get to know both Kari and Paul over the last 2 years, but in the grand scheme of things, that might not sound like a lot. But in the EAP loyal fan group, you know that a lot can happen in a short amount of time for highly driven humans, and our story is no different. So as such, it feels like I've actually known both of these amazing humans both my entire life. And I'm grateful for their friendship, their guidance, and their love. Plus, I'm honored to have been asked to interview them for this, the 100th episode of the Empowered Athlete Podcast. Okay, let's dive right into this.
Let's do it.
That's so usually reserved for the home front. Wow. Usually don't hear that on the podcast. All the listeners are hearing what Paul does on a personal level. His horn, his sport horn.
We're here now. We're home.
Mouth trumpet too. People don't hear the mouth trumpet a lot.
Behind the scenes people. We're here. That's why we're doing it. Do
the
mouth trumpet and all of your answers.
Nope.
Do the mouth trumpet.
200th episode. See you there.
Oh, wow. So we only get the horn right now, and the mouth trumpet is 100 episodes later.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll be here for that too. So stay tuned. But right now we're at 100. Let's stay focused.
Let's do this.
Wrangle the cats. All right. You two have worked together in a number of different capacities. People maybe know, people don't know. You can talk a bit about that. So tell me, how has this relationship evolved over the years?
Wow, we're starting easy. Holy cow. Well, we've worked together on making a child, which we were successful at.
You were successful?
Yeah, our child is at school.
He's working backwards. His brain's going from soonest to the
I don't know. Seriously though, specifically with the podcast, I would say for me, it's been a real challenge. And that is because my default operating system is to keep it pretty shallow, keep things to myself, not open up, those sorts of things. And the vision that Kari had for this podcast and the reason it's here is to get into the real stuff, get a little bit uncomfortable, share what's really going on. And so I've been pushed continually throughout the course of, I guess, this entire series that it's been by Kari to open up more, to share more, to be real and authentic. And at times it's really uncomfortable for me. I at first hated doing it, although I believed in the show and the reason that we were doing it for. And so it has been a challenge that way because I've gotten in my own way of bringing my best at times and had to work through that with Kari pushing me, and that's brought some friction for our relationship. But great friction, really. Looking back on it, it's helped me evolve and become a better human being. So that's kind of my take on it.
Was the question regarding the podcast, or was it regarding how long we've ever worked together?
Much like you ask questions, I like to just open the door to see what happens.
And I'm trying to clarify.
Feel free to answer another way. I just kind of, how has the relationship evolved over the years? It can be about the podcast, but you can speak to like your relationship as a partnership, as
we've worked together on a number of capacities. Before we were ever together as a couple, I was his strength coach for a number of years. And then even after we were a couple, I was still your strength coach. I'm still coaching you from a strength and conditioning standpoint.
Yep.
Just working on the program today for our training. So, so there's, we've had to work together from a training standpoint and a sports standpoint for a long time. And that's probably where we've worked really smoothly together, because it's both in our professional zones. And except, you know, when one of us is deviating from our professional zone, then there's a little struggle there, I guess. But it's hard to be a couple working professionally together, because now it's also into the business and power conditioning. So the empowered are resets, you know, we're coaching groups of people, taking people through retreats. And so both of us have such a high standard for authenticity, meaning we don't want to be saying one thing and doing another. I believe so strongly in walking the walk that I've been talking, that if we are not doing that personally, it just feels really bad. So ultimately, if we're not aligned together as a couple or cohesive as a couple, then it's not working as well in the business front or in the podcast front. When we're aligned as a couple, then we work better together. It's smoother, there's flow, we have more fun, there's, you know, chippy interactions with no grudges, there's more humor, there's all those things. So yeah, it's tough working together as a couple, because if there's a beef somewhere, then that can come out in the work, and you don't want that. And yeah, so
True.
And you can't leave the office, right? Because if there's a beef or something comes up at work, air quotes, well,
24/7.
let's now have dinner together, and now let's
be in the kitchen, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that some of that, like, so there's been an evolution, right? As you've both touched upon that. Do you think that, can you hear it in the podcast in 100 episodes? Do you feel like you can hear that evolution, like, transpiring through? I mean, you guys, you always know when you're in the background, you know what's going on between you two when you step into that interview situation, right? And I'm just curious if you listen back and go like, oh yeah, I remember what was going on that week.
Personally, you and Paul encourage me to listen back on various recordings or presentations or things like that, so that I can improve the work that I do. And I tend to just walk away from it and move on to the next thing. So I haven't even listened back to one of the earlier episodes, but I'm hazarding a guess that it's changed a fair bit, because there's just been so much that has changed personally. So I could imagine that we'd be able to hear some of the differences. But I try to not go back and analyze. I just have too much on my plate to book that in, which I probably should book it in.
I'll put it on your calendar. Something else you need to do.
Yeah.
Look it in, Kari. Look it in. Do you guys have Paul, you first for this one. Do you have a fond or not so fond memory to share?
From the podcast, imagine specifically.
Yes. We'll keep it tight.
I can't give a specific, but I know that when we have had to get a recording out of Kari and I doing, you know, a monthly episode where it's just the two of us, that a lot of times, not a lot of times, but just sometimes there's a lot of stress around what's it going to be about, and coming up with new topics and trying to think of things that are going to be interesting for listeners to hear about, not just blab. And so there's been a couple times going into it where I've had a lot of anxiety or been nervous about what's going to come out, but then been surprised time and time again of where the conversation goes. And I feel like we get into some real things that can be useful for people to apply in their own lives, or just learn from blatant mistakes that I've made or that we've made as a couple. So I think those are the least fond memories of the podcast, or kind of those pre-show, not jitters, but just stressful feelings that I've had, and just wanting to make sure that this is good and that we do a good job of it, and that it's something that we're proud to put out. And so that's becoming less and less. I think now we've really found our rhythm, and they're just playing off each other better in interviews and understanding kind of the direction. I know if Kari's asking some questions where she might be going with it and how to play off of that a little more. And so that's getting more fun. And I guess the best memories are really just the great laughs we've had, all the different athletes and people on the show, where we'll just be talking about something completely away from sport, something ridiculous in life that's we can all laugh about. I think those are just kind of the best memories of finding those little nuggets of connection that you wouldn't expect, you know, a 3-time Olympic medalist to share the same taste in banana bread as you or something, or whatever it is, that it's you know, just those little nuggets that come up, I think are the best parts of it.
Yeah, it's that human connection. But I think one of my biggest, this is just off of what you said, I'm not concerned about the topic because I can come up with a million ideas. I get concerned about him liking the topic, because getting him to agree on so Paul wants it a certain way or has an idea, and I'm like, what about this? What about this? What about this? You know? And then he's exactly right. Any angst we might have had about a certain topic, we finally agree on a topic. Okay, this is going to be it. And then we go into it. And then what comes out is, I think, usually better than what we anticipated, because I always want to provide some value, some nugget, something that people can chew on that will elevate their life, their sport, their quality of life, and use, you know, our learnings or failings as fodder for that. So but then some of the other funny ones, it's like there have been episodes where, you know, he's running the kids from one place to another and he's in the van doing it. We're trying to get connection, or we've messed up on a time, or, you know, like there's almost so many of the things have happened where we're just jumping through the hoops trying to make it happen and finding a way. And that's the struggle, where you find a way. You didn't know how you would, but you find a way.
Yeah, one of my best memories that just popped in my head was we did a series of 2 interviews with Rob Schramp, and I think it was before the second one. We're trying to get the show ready, and I was in the parking lot in arena I think it was in Barrie, and I don't know where Kari was, and Rob was, I think he was in Florida or something, and we're trying to get the show started. He's got music going, and he's like, "Hey Siri, turn the music off." or like, "Hey Siri, turn the music off." Siri, and like just he's screaming at his, you know, speaker to shut up. Music's going, and there's kids running in and out, and there's mayhem. And then all of a sudden, okay, we're on, and things get going. But those things make it interesting.
This podcast, in a lot of ways, because the truth is, I knew of both of you, but I didn't know you, which sounds a bit weird. But if you know who these 2 amazing humans are, then you'd know them before you like maybe met them. You're like, I know who that is. And for me, volleyball was such a big thing. And I didn't know Kari because I didn't know who was running that strength and conditioning for the men's and women's teams, but I knew you because I would have seen you, and volleyball in Manitoba was such a big thing. And this is such a microcosm of your lives. And like, that's what people maybe don't realize. And what I find so fascinating about this podcast, like, you're serving athletes and coaches in a way to really get the behind the scenes realities of sport and of that high performance life. But to do so, like, you're still living your lives. And that's what I love about knowing some of that too in the background, now that I know you, and hearing like, oh yeah, this happened and that happened. But that's what makes it so much more like authentic. It's great if you have, you know, a producer and all that studio, and we'd love that. We would, if anyone wants to donate that in.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. But this is people. We're people. We're human beings. It's the human element that comes into play that I have just like, I heard it when I heard the podcast again before I met you, and I could hear that real lifeness in it. And I was like, oh, I like this. Well, so I've always appreciated that.
Your podcast, when we interviewed you, was one of the human ones because somehow out of all the podcasts, your podcast got completely, you know, chewed up by the technology that
it was too good. Just in case anyone was wondering, it was too good for the airwaves, so we had to distract it.
So
the world could only handle a re-recording.
Paul's losing his mind, about losing this podcast. And I'm just like, okay, well, we have to ask her for a re-interview. We have to. And so he takes it upon himself to, email and get a hold of you. And he starts the email subject line something like, something awful has happened. And
yeah, it was like tragedy. And I was like, oh my God,
big word, like horrible. Like horrible.
Oh yeah, it was and heart palpitation.
Meanwhile, Cassie's like, what, who's, has a life been lost? And then he goes on in the email to say, we've lost your podcast, blah, blah, blah. And she's replying going, okay.
You want me to talk some more? Sure. Call me. Won't be a problem. I'm pretty sure I can remember a different version of that story, but that's just it. Right. And what came out the first time helped us have a second conversation, and it was maybe even more powerful. And that's kind of the cool part about like the tragedy of real life happening through this process.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Oh, I was going to say somebody else that happened to where it dropped in the middle of, like, we lost connection, whatever it was. And I think it was Corinne Thomas. And it was brutal because they're in the middle of a heartfelt story and then they're gone and you're just like, oh, why?
Pick it back up right where you felt it.
And you're trying to bring the emotion back and get back into the story when it's just been dropped, and then you're so emotionally you're frustrated and all this, and then you're trying to get back to that place of where everybody's listening in about how the broken bone and the cold water and the horrible, training camp and, and you're like, oh, so yeah, those things happen.
And to that end, like the struggles that happen on the podcast happen in life too. And I think that I speak for all of us when I say that our successes are often the things that people know us the best for. We look at our bios and stuff and everyone goes like, oh, you're such and such, and you did this and this and this, and we're known for those things. And you guys do an excellent job of encouraging your guests to talk about those struggles and to really say like, well, here's the reality behind the curtain. And so let's flip that a bit. And what do you guys perceive as your biggest failure? And what did you learn from it? And it doesn't just have to be the podcast. I invite this to be anything.
Wow. Kari?
Thanks, hon.
Whomever feels. Again, don't get like overwhelmed by the biggest. Just what's a failure that comes up for you when I say that?
Well, I think that I learned about forgiveness a number of years ago. I mean, we've all learned about forgiveness all of our lives, but truly gone through the processes of massive forgiveness and what it does for my life. And then when things were really, really challenging for Paul and I, this is before we started the podcast, and we had separated for a short period of time, but it was like eternity when you're going through things like this. And what I couldn't see at all, which is just an example of, living in our own, being in the water, you're the fish in the fishbowl, not realizing you're in water. I couldn't realize how much I had to forgive with Paul and myself in that whole situation. And it just, I couldn't see it at the time, even though I thought I'd be able to see that, or I thought I would, because I'd gone through such a massive experience forgiving a family member in my life. But I guess in looking back, it was one of those things where I kind of felt like I let myself down, let Paul down, and let our relationship down, and how long I hung on to so much anger. But I don't know that any of that is a true failing, because there's always so much to be learned from it. So I really, really practice looking for the lessons in the failures and the lessons in the mistakes. And that big lesson was simply that, it's really hard to see the things that are right in front of you sometimes when they're so personally close to you. And that's where, again, it's practicing what I preach, which is, you know, having an objective measure, being coached. I don't think that we can keep helping others unless we're willing to be helped. And that's something that I struggle with, is being helped. So yeah, anyway.
She'll diminish it quietly, listeners, as she's like, yeah, anyways, so that powerful thing I just said. No, thank you for sharing that, because it's very honest, and it's come, like, for you, it's come such a long way, and I only know a fraction of it, so you're doing a great job, and I appreciate that share.
Thank you.
Paul, how about you?
Biggest failure. What instantly pops to mind, which always did throughout my career, was the failure to make the Olympic Games. And like Kari said, you know, we look at these things differently now. My perspective's changed entirely, and I almost have to change it. That my biggest failure might have been just not properly planning for my life and being so singular in volleyball and stuck in that identity as a volleyball player, that I think where I let myself down. And this isn't an issue I'm feeling now, but where I, you know, looking back, where I believe I failed was not preparing for life after volleyball and not expanding my identity beyond volleyball while I was in it. That everything I did hinged on it and how I was performing, and that produced great results in that area of my life, but let a whole bunch of other areas of my life down. And so I'd say that'd probably be my biggest failures, that I could have come out of my volleyball career, you know, at least with a ton of direction, or having started some education, something I was interested in, or maybe guns blazing on something had I applied enough time to think about it prior to actually stopping and getting off the court. And so knowing all the problems that lack of preparation caused, you know, directly from our marriage, for my relationship with my kids, for relationship with myself, that is probably easily the biggest failure. The old Olympic one was simply because it's so tied to my identity, that my identity is a volleyball player. I need to be successful. I need to go to the Olympics. So I didn't go to the Olympics. That's the failure. That's like so superficial. But the real failing was the lack of work on myself that I could have been doing. And I have a complete understanding of why I didn't. And, you know, everything's happening for a reason. And,
Yeah.
You know,
how has that shaped, like, how
yeah.
you look at your identity now, though, Paul? Like, because obviously you've come like full circle on a lot of that stuff.
Well, it's just this continual annoying work in progress of myself. You know,
Amen.
It's like,
Amen.
my God,
very annoying.
why do I keep making these same mistakes? Why do I keep having these same thought patterns that don't work, that I know now don't work, but at least, hey, now I'm recognizing that they're there. You know, it's making the habit of trying to connect with a new friend every week, and just getting out of that old operating system that's just so deeply ingrained. That's the work now, and the frustration now, I guess.
Well, it's in there. Those patterns are in there.
Oh yeah.
They just burrow.
Yeah.
Stay here. And that's the kind of stuff that those patterns of relationship, the identity piece, that does come up in all of your athlete interviews. Lots of people talk, like, you get that out of them. They find themselves talking about it, right? Like, whether or not you prompt them. Usually people, and that's what I love about this podcast so much, is that people are ready to talk when they come and speak to you, which is powerful. Because a lot of times when we share these stories as athletes, when we're in the thick of the competition, there's a bit of a hesitation to speak openly and honestly, not only because, like you just touched on, Paul, we're not aware. Like, we don't know that it's happening. We just think, this is it. This is all I know. And I'm sure even, Kari, you could speak to the same thing, like when you were coaching the national teams, like the way that things are, it's just like, that's how it is. You don't realize that 10 years later, you're going to go, oh, wow, and look back. So you guys have been able to create such a powerful platform for these athletes in their pursuit of excellence, and ultimately help inspire others to get their best life. So you guys, I asked you about your favorite episodes. I asked you to give me 4 of your favorite episodes, and you each gave them to me secretly. And
I gave you
if you wanna-
3. I have to pick 4.
well, you gave me 3 plus me, so
Yeah,
I'm counting that
okay.
as 4. He was trying to get brownie points for some reason. I don't know why.
Knew he would.
Either way,
I was gonna spring that as, and the bonus favorite is, that's what
There it is.
He has to do it. And they're just buttering me up because they didn't want any other hard questions, but too bad. My journalistic nature. So you actually landed only on one of the same. And so I'm going to talk about that one just briefly. So
I know which one it was.
I'm sure you both do. So I will say for the listeners, your list. So Kari's list is episode 70, John Berardi, episode 38, Haley Wickenheiser, and episode 59, Simon Whitfield. I'll leave the matching one for last. Now you know the answer. And Paul, your 2 minus me, which is episode 56, is Gavin Schmidt, episode 3, and Mark Lee, episode 61. The one that you 2 matched on, saying that it was your favorite episode, was Jennifer Broxterman, episode 49. So what do you think about about that episode that you think that really resonated with each of you as like a favorite? I went back and listened to it again. I had heard it before, and it's a powerful interview. She has an amazing story, and but that's maybe not what it is. So why don't you tell me what it was that made it the favorite?
Kari, you're up.
So bossy.
Ladies first.
Right.
Gentleman. Sorry, that's what I meant. What a gentleman.
Yeah. She's, without giving, well, I mean, I'll give away what's going on there, but we're always talking about the sport struggle is a human struggle, and the human struggle is our life struggle. And she was experiencing and is experiencing exactly that. So, if sport is epitomizing life or our humanness, I should say, but then that humanness is some version of us trying to survive in this world. She's literally doing that instead of figuratively, because as an athlete, as a professional, as a registered dietitian, she's struggling with cancer, and just, she got raw and got real with everything that was going on. And I think that it was, although however hard it was to hear the reality of it, it was refreshing from the sense that then people really understand what it's like for someone who is fighting for their life and doing so in a way that has absolutely no self-pity, and doing so in a way that is looking to serve and educate other people so that, they can understand what it's like for someone with cancer, or other people can understand what the journey is like, or when you're being told, or how few services you have, or how bloody painful it is, and so she was just so real and raw and brave, just incredibly courageous in not only what she experienced, but even just in the sharing of it. And I think that's why it landed for me, because you can just see how someone with so much life and so much energy and so much to give can be taken, and how she's doing things unconventionally to live her best life. She's chosen not to do chemotherapy and radiation in order to preserve the kind of life she wants, and it's working for her. And so just that alone, the miracle of what she's able to experience, that alone is profound. So so that's why it was a fave.
I can't add much to that. That was a fantastic answer. I would just echo Kari's last point, and it's what really stood out for me was to be facing the diagnosis that she had, and to make the decisions she made that go completely against, what would be the recommended advice of 99.9% of doctors in the world, and to trust her body, to trust herself, to trust what she has been teaching others about her whole life from a nutritional standpoint. as a way out of this, or as a way to live, as Kari said, her life on her terms, was just so incredibly powerful and so unique that it just, for me, that's why it set that episode apart.
Mm-hmm.
To that end, how have you found interviewing these amazing people like Jennifer, who have these incredible stories and do get very brave? How has it translated into your own process of self-reflection?
It's been incredible for me, because as I've talked about throughout the show, I've struggled with identity and struggled with these different things, and so to hear the reason, again, Kari thought of this show was to share these stories so other athletes out there, whatever they're experiencing, know they're not alone, to know that other people are going through it. And it's exactly that for me, even though I'm lucky enough to be part of the interview, to hear those things, the struggles, the lows, the highs, the self-doubt, the worry that other people have, allows me to say to myself that, yeah, this is okay to be feeling that way as well. And so there's a lot of times where I, having been in the athletic world as the people we're interviewing may have been in such similar situations, it's that feeling of, hey, we're speaking the same language. Mm-hmm. Like I get you, you get me. We've shared these types of struggles that a lot of people can't really understand. Can't understand what it's like to be on the road for 3 or 4 months, living out of a suitcase and trying to compete and deal with all the different things that you deal with. And that common language is also kind of a energizing breath of fresh air to talk the talk again with someone who gets it.
Yeah.
I think in that getting it also, sometimes people have curiosity about someone that they've revered as a high performance athlete. And when they revere this person, they have this image, this story in their mind of what their life is like and what things are like for them. And sometimes I think the podcast opens up a different dialogue that has them realize that, oh, they have a lot of similarities to what I struggle with in school, or what I struggle with in work, or what, so there's that kind of translation that goes across into other areas of life, even though, the bubble of sport ends up being so specific in so many areas. The other thing I would say in terms of just kind of reflecting and realizing for me, or for us, I think it's for Paul too, is that I think it emphasizes us practicing greater awareness of ourselves and other humans. And so this other athletes, people, men, women, just we're practicing this greater awareness of other humans. And there's been times where Paul and I have gotten off a podcast, finished it, looked at each other and been like, oh, they're going to be for a rough go when they retire, because we can tell where they are mentally right now, that like Paul or like some other people who we've seen really have challenges, they're so all encompassed in sport, that if something happens to that bubble or that world for them, we know there's going to be a big struggle. And at least there's some solace in knowing that maybe the podcast, maybe they know they've got somebody to talk to in us because we get it. Maybe they know that there's someone else there that can understand once they hit that wall, if they do. Maybe they won't, but there's been times where we both come away going, holy cow, like they're going to be in for a rough go after blank or whatever, mm-hmm. when they retire, once the Olympics are done, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That feeling of aloneness can really permeate the athletic bubble when you're among hundreds of people, but yet you feel like you're just standing in this room by yourself. And that's a powerful feeling in both the negative and positive aspects. Those misconceptions around being an athlete, around high performance, Olympic, whatever it is, as well as a high performance person, there can be a lot of those. I think a lot of us have these expectations of others and their lifestyles. And I wanted to ask you, as this last question before we do the lightning round, what is a common misconception about you that you want to debunk?
Oh, can I do Kari and Kari does me?
Oh my gosh.
Sure. I would love
Just to add a little spicy twist to
Yes,
this.
spin it up.
So if you've seen Kari, I know this is a podcast, it's tough to do, but
Watch the video, people.
yeah. She's a lean, mean wrecking machine.
Mhm.
You know, veins are popping when she's lifting weights. She's cut. But would you believe? Well, actually, I'm sure a regular listeners would, because every time Kari asks for favorite food or favorite dessert, right? That's one of her favorite questions to ask because that's right up her alley. So Kari enjoys the odd sweet. That's probably what people may not guess about her seeing her.
That's where she's holding up a banana right now to try and deflect, but it's not working.
But yeah, something that you wouldn't know about her is that she has a definite sweet tooth and partakes in all sorts of wine gums, marshmallows dipped in chocolate chips, dark
Like
chocolate,
what?
of course.
It's not on the nutrition plan. If you hire her, however, she will not write
Right?
that in.
Yeah. So that's going on fairly often. It's on the daily.
Yeah.
But obviously counterbalanced with perfection in almost every other area of her diet and health and fitness regime. So
You're outed.
it's it is a scary truth.
I love it. I'm ready for polls now.
Why, thank you, my dear. I think I already outed you on the blowhorn and the mouth trumpet earlier. So it's what would people not know about you that they wouldn't?
Like a misconception, something they might think about Paul because they see him, or they're just like, oh, I bet this about that person.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I'm nervous.
I think he's the epitome of a good boy. Like, so sweet, so nice, so like the epitome of a good boy. But when he goes off, he goes freaking off. Like off.
I'm with you there, Paul.
Like he has a broken bone in his hand because of his going off. So he comes across as he's so soft-spoken, so mild-mannered, and just, very, very good boy-esque. And
do you feel like you saw him play lots because you were a strength and conditioning coach, but do you think that, before you guys were together, could you have imagined that? And same goes for you. Did you think she maybe you knew she liked sweets, Paul? I'm not sure if you saw it. She was like sneaking him when she was your coach, but is that something that you saw? Like, cause when I've seen Paul play, like back in the day, quote unquote, he was a powerful player, right? So there was like fury in there. So you knew it was there, like, but it was when you spoke to him or saw him in interviews, it was very like,
yeah. No, I knew all my athletes, all my players, before I even knew I was doing it, now I know I do this, but I always profiled everybody. And I did it before I was even aware of what I was doing. And that's just part of me. But no, the way he was.
Their entire basement is photos of athletes and push pins and newspaper articles and red string stretched between people. And it's pretty creepy.
In my head.
It's really creepy.
That's what it looks like in my head. That's what my head looks like.
And she's eating marshmallows.
Yeah, exactly.
Thinking about it. My master plan. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's a plan.
Beep test tomorrow.
No, beep test.
It was, I've said this a lot, but he's one of the hardest and maybe the hardest working athlete that I've ever trained. And I've trained some beasts of just workers, and he is a workhorse to the extreme. And so when somebody has that to tap into, I've always seen, I don't often say always or never, but I've never seen a case where there wasn't something underneath that driving that.
He's rubbing his shoulder right now, just thinking about volleyball. He's like, the pain has come back. He's like, I can't.
Ow.
Oh, don't make me train so hard. Amazing.
Put them through that kind of suffering without having something behind it driving.
Yeah. I love it. And that's why, Paul, you did it. She profiled you and she's like, that guy can handle me.
Not thinking
And
that way.
yeah, no, not consciously, but subconsciously you'd already done the profile and you're like, okay.
No, when he was interested in me, I said very clearly, you gotta be superhuman to handle me.
Y'all ain't ready for this, I believe.
I wasn't ready.
Nope.
I still don't know if I'm ready.
Not your.
You're still surviving. And to that end, the lightning round. Ladies and gentlemen, I've asked Paul and Kari to have some kind of a implement to write with, and a piece of paper or a whiteboard or something. I'm going to ask you a question between this or that, so 2 items, and you're going to write your answer and show it to me on screen, and then I'll tell the viewers, and you'll see it if you're watching the video, if they match. They don't have to match. I just want to see where we're at, okay? So we have a few questions. This will be pretty quick. First question. Swim with dolphins or sharks? And the answers are?
Do we reveal? You
Go
count
ahead,
down?
reveal your answers. Not a match. So we have dolphins for Kari and sharks for Paul. But what do you have under the bottom there? Sharks.
That says in brackets cage.
In a cage.
I'm not going to swim with.
I want the adrenaline. I want the adrenaline of swimming with sharks, but I want the higher level intelligence of swimming with the dolphins. They're the smart ones, honey.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to agree. Remember, Kari, she's already trying to coach you on what you need. Just you go and get in your cage with the sharks. You're having 2 experiences right now. All right, next question. This one's a little rated R, but not so much. Would you like to have sex on the beach or in a bouncy castle? Let's assume the bouncy castle could handle the weight of Paul's body. Reveal your answers. Bouncy castle, beach. Okay, well you're having sex.
You went beach?
Paul went bouncy castle. Not a match.
Oh, just sand everywhere.
Okay, that's what my first thought was. But when she said bouncy castle, do you know how many kids and how disgusting it is in bouncy
castle? It's a clean bouncy castle.
Yeah. Oh, whoa.
Put it up for this.
And then there's the like plasticky.
It's not like a ball pit at McDonald's.
You can't clean every ball.
Yep.
And a beach can be beautiful. You can have a blanket. A bouncy castle is like a freaking a clown could walk in. Like it's just
gonna get a clown.
Hi, kids.
Rusty clown folks. What's he doing here? Okay, all right. Next question. This may be easy. We'll see. Would you like to be a cat or a dog? Well, I know Kari's answer. Go ahead, Paul. You don't have to match. I just want to see.
I don't know why my mind makes these questions difficult, but
because it's fun. Because it's complicated. You're like, but I have to.
Can we reveal?
Do I have to meow? Reveal. Please reveal. Yeah, not a match. He says he wants to be a cat. So a dog for Kari, because she's a super dog person. If you know her, she'll talk. She loves her dogs. Paul also has converted somewhat to a dog person as well, but apparently he would like to be a cat, but more specifically, he'd like to be a tiger. And this is why he's complicating it. Because you're right. I didn't say what variety of feline.
Well, as soon as you said dog, I pictured house cat when you said cat, but then when you said dog, I said, well, what kind of dog? Because I've actually had some experience with different dogs now, and there's some I definitely wouldn't want to be, like a Great Dane.
So good. So good. Live forever without the internet or live forever without hot water? We're really thinking about it. This is not a dead air time.
Well, again, I get the questions as soon as...
It's not going to happen, Paul. I just want you to pick. Currently, he says, go ahead, reveal yours. He says hot water, internet. All right, well, the 2 of you, not a match.
I have you guys. Because I have you guys.
Oh.
Yeah, that was actually really tough.
It is tough. That's why I put it on there. I was like, I don't know if I can think about that. I hate cold showers. And you take a cold shower every day.
Right.
I'm not really sure.
So I was... But I was thinking, does that mean every pool I ever get in is cold? Does that mean every beach we go to, it's like freezing, like Georgian Bay?
Yeah,
like,
Lakes in Canada only. Yeah.
I want hot water because like I've had many experience with no hot water and it's not good.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I went no hot water because how would we ever broadcast the internet or the athlete podcast without?
Well,
I
that's why
mean,
I
we're
figured
saying no to
you
this.
guys
You
would-
just said no to the show.
No, I didn't because I have
Well,
you.
oh.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I knew that there would be someone.
Together, they have everything. One of them has to live without each one.
Okay.
Paul, you have the internet, but you have no hot water. Can you please use your internet?
Every 10
Exactly.
minutes, Kari, Paul, can you send an email to Cassie? Let her know that.
Send an email to Cassie. Yeah, that'd go well. There just needs to be like one main person to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah.
One more. All right. Love or money?
Supposed to answer love here.
Reveal. Love. Oh, this just makes warms the
That's
cockles of
easy.
my heart.
It's easy, honey.
Well, you're moaning about the
We
other
both said
questions
love,
being
by the
hard.
way.
So yeah, it's a match. It's a match, thankfully.
That was our first match.
Really?
I like it. I wouldn't have it. Really?
It's
Okay,
like one of those
summer.
dating games.
Yeah, summer or winter?
And you can't have the other one ever again.
I mean, sure.
Is
Let's
that
say
what
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's
When-
this or that.
It's,
One of
or
them.
we're just saying.
Yeah, I used to pick the other one, but now I pick this one.
Reveal when Paul's ready. He's humming and hawing about it. I get it. I love people that struggle with these because they just can't wrap their head around choosing one as if the other one's gone forever in real life. Summers, it's a match. Summer people. Good.
I nearly put
All
winter
right.
because of global warming. That winter now is really.
Yeah, it's the be careful what you wish for.
You can almost
I wasn't
get
thinking of
both.
global warming at
I know
all.
lots of people are playing golf through the winter now, but then you can still.
I just played golf the other day in 10 degrees.
Yep. There you go.
It was chilly. To that question, being too warm or too cold? I know. You just want some definitive, like, do you mean I can never have the other one? I understand.
No.
Too warm is Paul's and too warm. They both want to be too warm. Okay, cool. Mountains or beach? And then we have one more. Mountains or beach? We know Kari wants to have sex on the beach, but I don't know if that's where she wants to be. Paul has drawn mountains.
Yes.
Some sort of triangles and beach. So you guys are going to have to live someplace with both. Currently, you're missing the mountains. And finally, cookies or cake?
Oh, easy.
Yeah, for him, it's
Okay.
super easy.
Okay. I don't know the answer to this. Cookies for Paul. So if people
Chocolate
want something
chip.
from him, and cookies for Kari. All right, so cookies are a commodity.
I'm surprised.
It's a match.
Thought I'd pick cake.
I did.
You didn't. I could go for
Now
pretty much
that being
anything at this
said,
point.
if
Sweet
I
September
could
is
only eat
murdering me.
one dessert ever again, like this is I'm going
Okay.
to the electric chair. They're giving me my last meal.
Yeah.
It would include Kari's, triple or quadruple layered maple carrot cake.
Send me the recipe
So
for October 1st.
It's to die for. It's off the charts.
Amazing. So
So
for
I
those
would go
listeners
with
that don't
cake
know,
if I
yeah,
was pushed.
cake.
So just
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
if this was
Cake.
defined between cookies and cake, it would actually be one slice of that.
Well, a little insight into the minds of Kari Schneider and Paul Durden there. Love it as a couple and individuals. And your future interviewers, should you be listening as an athlete. And for those of you that don't know, the three of us as men, as well as other people in our world right now, are doing the Sweet Free September. So some of these questions were really frustrating me as I went for groceries yesterday and was just like, why does everything look so delicious? And as I'm cooking and everything has sugar in it, just don't even, I can handle it, but it's still really frustrating. So I also miss cookies and cake right now. And I'm excited for October. I have one final question to wrap this interview up. I just wanted to see what would come up for you. Tell me and our listeners about what makes you feel inspired or like your best self.
After
I'm gonna go with Kari because to Liv, I know we started off by asking what's it like to work together, but to be around somebody who is so passionate, so fired up to help anybody and everybody that comes into her space every day, and to see how consistently she has shown up for as long as I have known her. She has been the epitome of professionalism and showing up consistently and consistently learning and pushing and driving for more. That's right in front of my face, that answer. So there you have it.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Wow.
Kari.
Everyone just insert awe right now. Aw. Love it.
What was the question?
Kari,
I can't remember.
I don't remember my
Yeah,
answers.
we need the Cannes studio audience like Full House.
We'll put that
you
in on the
know?
inspired or like your best self. Take us out.
It was, yeah. It was things like yesterday, you know, we've got, we're running a reset and we've got a coaching group and we have Wins Wednesday, and everybody's just piling in the wins. We created this culture that there's wins coming, and I know that, you know, I know that all of that started because of, you know, a vision or an idea, and that just inspires me to know that, okay, we're on the right track. We're going in the right direction. This is awesome because it's making a difference for people's lives. And that's really inspiring. I can, you know, I used to think that I loved sport. I always thought it was sport, but then I started to realize that it wasn't sport itself. It's who people became trying to reach their goals in sport that I was so fired up by. And so I think I'm really inspired by human growth and human potential, and yeah. And you guys inspire me to be a better version of myself.
Guys, well, that's exactly what this podcast is about. It's about inspiring others and ourselves. And that's what you have done for 100 episodes. And I am honored, and it's a privilege to know you and to be able to be the interviewer for this episode. And I can't wait for the next 100 episodes and Paul's mouth horn or whatever.
Mouth trumpet.
Mouth trumpet.
Oh, sorry.
Mouth trumpet.
There's the mouth horn. There's the horn, and then there's the mouth trumpet.
That's what I'm most looking forward to, but also the other athletes that I get to hear their stories.
Good.
So thank you both so much.
Thank you, Cassie,
awesome.
for hosting.
Thank
and
you,
a huge thank you to all of the athletes who have appeared in the first 100.
Yes.
We wouldn't be here without you, obviously, and for everything that they've shared and how raw and open so many of them have gotten with us. That's what really makes this really cool. And you were one of those athletes, Cassie, and because of that, that's how we connected so deeply. So thank you, and thank you to all the other athletes that have appeared with you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Cassie. So much fun.